Broadcasting live in high definition from the lower level conference room at the City Administration Building located at 401 West Owen K. Garriott. Please stay tuned as Mayor Bill Shuey presides over the meeting.
Claims list. Under Administrative Services, we have an item there titled ECI VS Inc. 2016 Grant Tracking Reporting Service for $9,880. And I was just curious what exactly that was.
That is our grant tracking software. It's called eCivis, I think. We've got all our data in there, and we get feeds on grants. And Joan, you could probably explain a little more for me. It's something that we found valuable in the past, and we're trying it again to see.
It allows for, it's a database also, in addition to tracking our own, and they give us feeds of grants coming up ahead of time. They also, if you are looking for something specific, it helps research. The last grant that we actually got that we utilized, it was the they were the TAP grants that we are using along with ODOT on Willow and Cleveland. But we've applied for many off of it, but those are the last ones we actually followed through and got the.
Do they notify us when grants are becoming available and that sort of thing, or do you have to access this?
You have to access it, but they will send notifications out of certain things, and they typically send them out before you get notified from somebody else. It's also, it just combines it all in one place, so you can go to one place and put in searches, and it'll get, the different agencies that actually put grants out.
So anyway, we're satisfied it's worth $9,880.
We have been satisfied. It keeps, there's a whole lot of research involved with grants, and it helps. You could have another person to sit and do all the research. This kind of speeds it up and helps in that aspect.
Okay.
We think it'll pay for itself. If it doesn't, then we'll stop doing
we
it.
evaluate it on an annual basis.
Another item on the consent items, 911, the AMBUC sign. Looking at it, it didn't have any indication of how large this sign is or exactly where they're planning on locating it. It's big.
Yeah, the lady from Pello Monument and I think she's an AMBUC too, started talking to us. In fact, she talked to Joan about, hey, what do we need to do to put this sign down? And Joan, I don't remember what you told me. Is it 5 foot?
8 foot 11 inches by 5 foot 1 inch.
Where is it?
8'11" by
It's a big rock.
ABC Park.
Piece of
Like a
grass.
slab.
By the-
It's a slab.
8 foot 11 inches long, 5 feet high.
That's
We do have a couple.
By 5 foot long.
We do have a
One way or the
picture. It's not a picture of the actual
Well, there's a
finished
picture of it. Yeah,
rock.
I saw the
It is
drawing.
the actual rock. That is the actual rock that the picture
Okay.
is of. And they're gonna have it engraved with the wording that is on the other one. And it should go, in that corner where the current sign is right now, and it's tall and slender at the top.
Are they planning on taking that sign down?
That's my understanding.
I see.
But again, I'm, the only person that's contacted us has been Pello Monument, who is doing the sign. I haven't had any contact with anybody, even though she is a member of AMBUGS. I haven't had any formal contact with the
Is it going to have some color added to it? Do you have any
Yes,
idea?
it will.
Okay. Ben?
That monument has a new owner, new owners.
Okay. Well, you know, they've got a sign up there already. I mean, doesn't bother me. I just was curious about,
And this also is at their expense. The city's not out anything. This is totally something they want to do and they want to pay for.
okay. All right. Well, that's all I had, Mayor.
Anyone else?
I did. Since I'm late, can I interrupt? On the tort claim, could someone explain the tort claim we had this evening?
Absolutely. Andrea?
Okay, this one is very unusual. We've never had one like this before. We had a tort claim in 2014. Well, we received it in 2014. It was May 30th, 2014. In August of 2014, the city of Enid denied it. In November of 2015, so a year and a half later, we received a request to be reconsidered, and we sent that back to OMAG. OMAG stands by its original decision to recommend denial of the claim, and so it's coming back to the city for reconsideration. So it is different. I mean, we've not had one that we've ever reconsidered like this.
Can you tell us what happened or what story?
The claim says that in July of 2013, the city of Enid was out fixing a water meter leak, and that is in fact true. We did have some folks out there in July of 2013. In January of 2014, Dr. Thomas started having problems with his water sprinklers, with his I don't know how much of it, but essentially some of it had frozen and leaked and broken. And then we didn't get the claim until May of 2014. So we got the claim almost a year after the city had been out there and 4 months after the repairs had been made. So it was very difficult to even determine, it was really difficult to determine anything at all from this claim, because the city was out there in July, nothing was broken until January. So, how is the city out there in July and then nothing happens until January? It's hard.
Because
So
things don't freeze in July.
true, but you still use your sprinkler in July, August, September, usually.
What is
So
it?
you would think that you would
What,
see a
you know
meter
what he
leak.
claimed we did? Supposedly damaged his system.
Broke a lateral line, I think is what it was. And then from that lateral line, multiple things were replaced. That line alone was not just replaced. 2 control valves, 4 rotors, 3 4-inch sprays, 1 12-inch spray, and 8 spray nozzles, along with major leaks in the front yard. And then replacing that 1 lateral line. Also replaced the controller. So, almost the whole system was replaced.
They did that in January?
They did that in January. January 7th, 2014. Water Wizards is the date of the Water Wizards invoice.
So nothing started leaking the day the city was out there digging?
No.
And then OMAG recommended,
OMAG recommended denial of the claim initially in August 2014. When we sent the reconsideration, I think I printed out their email.
but it was basically the same.
They said we Mary Ellis and I both reviewed this claim, and this was from Jane Spees, who's the claims manager at OMAG. Mary Ellis and I both reviewed this claim. We both agree with the examiner's handling and stand on our original denial recommendation. So,
Did they ever approve anything?
That was my question. In the year of being on the commission, I've never heard you say that we should approve a short term.
we actually, when we pay them, I normally don't bring them here. They go on the claims list.
So the only time we should ever hear it is when they're denied.
Right. Mhm. So you'll see them. If
Well, mine
if-
got denied most of
if they, we do actually, we pay tort claims, and I know it seems like we don't, but we do. We do pay some tort claims.
Would it be helpful if we put the ones that are paid on here too?
No.
No? Okay.
No, we just never see those, so it always looks like we just denied.
I feel like that would encourage.
I think we have
tort
enough
claims.
information in place usually.
Okay.
But you know, I know Dr. Thomas pretty well.
I do too, and
I'm surprised. I'm certain that he wouldn't ask for reimbursement from the city if he didn't feel confident it was the right decision. So I'm confused on this.
And he's obviously pursued it pretty diligently too.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know that I would agree with that because he let so much time lapse in between.
Yeah, a little
Well,
gap there.
you know what, that could have been a result of me, because he asked me about it, about last October, November, and I said, well, I think you can apply for a review or some sort of reconsideration, and so that may have spurred him to do so.
Well, when the commission originally denied the claim, he spoke with Karina within a few days of that, and he said, you know, well, what do I do now? And he gave her more information, and she said, if you want your claim to be reconsidered, you should put that in writing and get that to us. And that wasn't done for, you know, a year. So,
What was the work the city was doing
repairing a water meter leak
at the water meter?
at the water meter.
My thought is they denied it because there was more work other than at the water meter.
And that's possible.
Because I
That's
remember when
possible.
this came up.
Mhm. Yeah, that is possible because there's so much more work that was done. Because it's not impossible that damage was done, but there's also there's no proof that the city did it, and there's certainly no proof that all of that needed to be done to replace or to repair one lateral line.
At the time, I thought that's why they would have denied it.
Do we have a burden of proof as outlined in, a standard of proof, rather, as outlined in either statute or ordinance, that they have to establish, beyond reasonable doubt or
No, the OMAG looks at it from an insurance standpoint, just.
Well, they're gonna be
is there-
more conservative, I think, than aggressive, but I guess I tend to wonder how these issues arose if they were the only people, if the city was the only people digging around there, even if it was months later. I just don't see that. Those things don't typically break, or you don't have those kinds of problems unless somebody's been digging around.
Well,
Andrea,
when you have one, if you have one line though, I mean, it's very well possible that one line could have frozen and broken in the wintertime.
what will happen if the commission doesn't affirm the original denial?
The claim is still denied, and technically, it's actually well beyond the statute of limitations, so.
So it's a moot point.
I believe it's a moot point, but I have to do something with it to get it out of my office.
I think I'm going to ask that be removed from the consent items, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question about item 7.2.
7.2?
Yes, sir. That's regarding the sidewalk variance for the Kurt Light Honda.
There's a PowerPoint on that.
Chris, my question is, there are 2 sidewalks there that are required.
Yes.
Does this include both sidewalks or just the one on Gary?
The request for variance is for both sidewalks, Mayor.
Both?
Yes, sir.
It didn't state that, and the only picture we saw was on Gary.
Yes, we did photograph that bar ditch on Garriott for you to see, and I know that
That's the
doesn't,
pretty part of it.
yeah. We do have a PowerPoint that will show you
So both of them are included in the variance
request.
approved by the MAPC unanimously.
Yes. And what we have here was just kind of a little broader picture, shows you the neighborhood in general. Next slide, please. And then we drill down on the site, and the ordinance, as you're aware, required sidewalk here along O&K Garriott and then along West Brow here as well. And then the last slide, please, Julia, just is a picture of the condition of the right-of-way that Mr. Curtright would be developing a sidewalk in.
The right-of-way is on,
His dealership is right here,
I understand.
and so the sidewalk would be on the right-of-way. Our pictures don't really capture how steep those slopes are, but if you go there, it's fairly significant.
You wade in there when that's full of water.
Yes.
Aaron, you have a question?
I think there are flags there, so where the sidewalk to go.
Yeah, that's not actually for the sidewalks. Do you know what the blue indicates, Robert? In that photograph, do you see those? Maybe utility company was there?
The flags? Probably.
Usually for utility locates, usually blue is for water line
I was
locations.
sticking to the mic, please.
Yes, for utility locates, blue is usually used for water line locations.
Okay.
So they were not put there to indicate where a sidewalk would be.
Okay.
We have the ability to grant part of this, or none of it, or all of it, right? We can break it down depending on how. Okay.
Well, I'm in favor of granting the variance as it was approved unanimously by the MAPC.
Is this substantially similar to what Aspen Dental worked with on the opposite side of Garriott?
Yes, maybe the ditch there in front of Aspen was not quite as steep as this, and it was not a corner lot as this one is.
You have a bigger picture that gives us a better perspective of that whole area?
Yes, would you go out 2 slides, please, Julia? This is what I prepared for you this
So I
evening.
think that's important to look at there in particular.
This would be here's the dealership, and then this is the hotel. This is the parking lot of Western Sizzlin, right here. Oakwood Bowl, Jackson's.
Right next door to it, yeah, the Holiday Inn Express is a parking lot all the way out to the boundary.
Correct.
But then on this side to the east is Academy and Zales and
Well, right
All
next
that's
to
gonna
it.
be sidewalk.
all that's gonna have sidewalk, right?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
So we're about to have a lot of sidewalk put in right there.
No. The property right next to Curtright is owned by Curtright.
Right here.
Property right next
Right
to
here.
it is China King or the
Yeah.
Chinese restaurant. The only sidewalk out there now is in front of Zales. The only other place to put a sidewalk would be where that vacant lot is, right there.
This is
That would be, excuse me,
yeah, I'm sorry.
that would be the only sidewalk out there. It would be ridiculous
Well-
and ugly.
Bill, but correct me if I'm wrong, Chris.
I will.
Academy will be putting sidewalk in.
You're
Unless
correct.
we grant them a variance.
That's
But by the ordinance, Academy will be putting sidewalk in.
Well, I
Yes,
agree
it's a
with you,
requirement.
and that means, to me, we need to rework the ordinance, just
So-
like we did the residents.
So if we don't grant the ordinance, then Bill, we will have sidewalk, just like the long-term goal has been to piecemeal from Zales, from Curtright, and from Academy.
The long-term goal makes absolutely no common sense to me.
yes, sir.
Do they have a sidewalk in front of Zales?
Yes,
Yep, they did it.
Okay, so.
they did it, and that is the only
coming up?
sidewalk along O&K Garriott. And O&K Garriott is the busiest street in Enid, and it is a federal highway.
I never noticed the sidewalk.
Who would want anyone to walk along the sidewalk on O&K
We're
Garriott?
going to request Academy put a sidewalk in this bitty bit halfway through, but not that section.
Aaron, that's a driveway.
It'll be to their property line.
Driveway. That's,
That little thing there.
that
It's
little
hard to
thing
tell
there.
from the picture there.
So the property line's right there.
Yes, sir. You can see it right here. This is the Academy property line.
Clearly, I'm not as steady as a heart surgeon. But that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me.
Hey, let's see how well you are.
This sidewalk would cross the driveway,
I
and then
think
it
we
would
should
go
split the
across on
two.
the other side as well.
It's gonna
And
go all
right
the
here,
way
there
across.
is an existing sidewalk now,
Zales put in their sidewalk.
and then we would look at this section over here.
That's correct with Academy. That's Academy.
Is that where the service station is, Chris? Or the service
Third
station to the
section's
east?
still further.
Yes.
You can just barely see the service station right here.
Okay, okay. And they're certainly not going to put in a sidewalk. So you would have one in front of the Zales and that.
And half a little node right there, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hmm?
And all of Academy
No, but all of Academy,
will have a sidewalk.
Most of them.
is that the space just to the west of Zales?
Yeah, it looks like it's already been done by Zales. And then, Bill, if the service station is redone, and we certainly all hope this is a thriving retail node, and that will incentivize
I agree with that
the
part.
service center to redo, and if they build a nicer service center or do something different to that property, it will also be triggered. And then we would have, in that instance, assuming we don't grant the variance, we'll have sidewalk there, there. And for the folks who do walk along Garriott to get out to Walmart because they don't have any other choice, and there's no other place to walk for a mile either direction, there will be sidewalk there.
I've lived here 37 years and I have never, ever seen anyone walking along that area,
You
even
know,
in the parking lot.
People walk out there every day.
Tammy, that is the busiest street in Enid.
I know, and
It's a
people walk
federal
on it every
highway,
day.
and it's ridiculous to think that we need to put in sidewalks. We haven't had sidewalks there for 115 years.
And people
Why
are-
do we need them now?
Because it's dangerous when people do walk there.
And Bill, do
They've
you
got,
think,
they've got to have a little common sense sometime, somewhere.
But Bill, do you think that
wouldn't want
building
your
a
kids
big
walking
new-
out- You wouldn't want your kids walking out there.
do you think building a big new retail development right there is going to make more people walk there or less?
Less. They're gonna pull
Oh,
right.
come on.
You ask a question,
Well,
and
let's-
I'm answering your question. They're
Yeah.
gonna pull right up to the door. They're not gonna walk along on Gary.
Hey, the great thing is,
They
you guys are
do
gonna get to
now.
vote upstairs.
We're gonna vote.
Well, I have a
They do
couple more
walk there
points
now.
on that. Just questions, because
Go ahead, Aaron.
Mayor, thank you. To my understanding, he was told at the very beginning that sidewalks were not required. And city made it an error, unfortunately. Now we're going back, after his budget was set, working with the architect, everything is moving forward and requiring him to do it. That doesn't seem like a very reasonable expectation to me.
That is correct. The city made a mistake in September, I think, when he applied for his permit. We found the mistake in December, towards the end of December, I think, is when we notified, I believe, Roy Easley, his architect, I think is what happened. And then that's what's brought us to today. So you're absolutely correct, Commissioner.
I have a little heartburn with that piece of it. I don't disagree that it'd be great to have sidewalks out there. But guys, he was already moving forward with this project, had it financed. I mean, those of us around the table that have done projects, big projects, where you're on a tight budget anyways, and now we're gonna throw this out there that have complications and are gonna require some kind of a bridge over whatever on the east side there. It just seems like a lot to ask of a property owner that's trying to do good things in the community. And I don't feel good about that. It would be great to have sidewalks there, but in all reality, Academy is a multi-million-dollar project, and they're gonna have to put in 5 feet on the west side of that little bitty, or on the east side of that little bitty node on the west of their property. And then about, 20 feet there on the east side. You're not talking about a fair comparison, guys. This is not a fair comparison at all. And it would be great to have sidewalks. I'm not discrediting that. But let's talk about the specifics of what happened, and the reality is, we're creating a hardship for a solid business in Enid that creates a lot of sales tax.
Question of law, Andrea. Does an approved site plan that was approved in error necessitate a variance at all? I mean, I guess on one hand, a staff error doesn't obviate property owner's responsibility to comply with zoning regulations.
Right.
On the other hand, the site plan was approved without it, and does he even have to ask for a variance?
You should just get it.
I don't know that it
Because
was
the
a
site
site
plan
plan. I
was
think it
approved?
was.
Wait just a minute.
I don't know that it was a site plan. I think it was just building permits as far as I know. But I don't know because I haven't, no one's brought it to me, so I don't know. I haven't looked at it. But it would be my opinion though that a staff error though would not obviate his need to get the variance. But I think it certainly gives you more information to consider than you would normally have. So, now, 5 years later, 10 years later, when everything's already done, I think that's a different story. But while they're doing the project, while they're still doing the project has not been, hasn't passed its final inspections. I think that's where you are.
So you think the point of no return, as it were, would be the final inspection?
I do.
And not submission or approval from staff level
Right.
of whatever was approved?
Right.
Huh.
David has a comment.
How many feet is it across the front?
Do you know, Roy?
190 feet, 240. 240. 240 if you count the city property, yeah, the right of way.
So 200 feet at $50, so we're asking them to spend $10,000 on an $800,000 project.
No, no. That's a low price.
Well, $50 a foot's been pretty much what we've been told around here that sidewalks cost. I haven't put one in lately, but I'm talking just about the front. I know that the variance is for the whole thing, but my recommendation is we just require just the front part and then turn it sideways like engineering, I think, is going to recommend, to not go over that culvert. That way we sort of have a compromise between requiring down the side streets, which is ridiculous, since they really don't go anywhere. I think in the future, I mean, Bill, I know it's been 37 years for you, but in the future, I think we're going to see some changes along here, and we kind of have to stick a little bit to our guns on the main thoroughfares that we think in the future will be of some benefit. I also see a lot of people walking there, and you can get from, and if the picture were even bigger, it seems to me that KFC and all that's just a little farther down beyond United. You could walk from Oakwood all the way down past this on concrete, except for that one area, and even in his parking lot where it's asphalt, you can still walk through that without having to get out on the road or walk in the mud. So my recommendation would be we do just the front. It's however many, 200 feet at $50. It's not an unreasonable amount, in my opinion, but we'll see what the commission wants to do, but that's my opinion.
Let's vote on it upstairs.
My opinion
Dead horse.
is we talk about being business friendly in Enid, Oklahoma. This is not being business friendly in Enid, Oklahoma to do what we're doing with commercial sidewalks.
But we have an ordinance on the books, Bill.
I understand.
I know where you're
understand
coming
the
from,
ordinance.
but we didn't change the ordinance on this either a year ago or 2 years ago or last month when we
Last
changed.
month we
So
talked-
this has been there, and all we're doing basically is enforcing what is on the books. Now, if we want to change that, then, we can talk about that.
And we have talked about that.
But that's not being business unfriendly when this was on the books to start with.
But, Mayor, if you don't mind, one last thought from me. David, I heard you say just a minute ago that it's acceptable to ask people to walk through the asphalt part on the east side. Is it not acceptable to ask them to walk through the concrete part on the west side of that road, where we're asking him to put a sidewalk 3 feet from his parking lot?
Well, the sidewalk that's going to be Academy, and most of that is actually considered the parking lot because of where it is. They're not going to put a separate piece of.
I'm talking about curb rights.
I know, but you were asking about what else Academy was going to have to put in. They're not going to have to add much, but it's because it's mostly parking lot.
But what you just said is they should be able to go all the way from Oakwood.
That's not true.
West while walking on pavement. But
Well, you'll have to go through the parking lots. Yeah, it'd be much better to have a sidewalk, because otherwise you got to go around all those cars and everything else.
But the asphalt part right there on the east side of Curtright, that it's okay to have people walk through that, but we're gonna require a sidewalk on the west side when they could just as easily walk through the parking lot on his property on the west.
Which means they'll have to walk through the parking lot at the Holiday Inn Express and at Western Sizzler.
Right.
Because chances are, there will never, ever be a sidewalk in front of the Holiday Inn Express or Western Sizzler. They don't need it. And why we think the commercial business wants to put something that they don't need.
Folks, we got,
The dirt owners.
we have, over the last, I don't know how many months, beat the sidewalks from a dead horse to dog food.
Which is okay.
I think we have a new ordinance, and we'll vote on the variance, and it will pass or it won't, but
And
But
then
I-
relook at the ordinance.
No, we
I-
just did that.
regardless, tonight we'll vote in the variance, and it will pass or it won't, but
Tammy, we
But
did it.
I would
we did it
love
on
to-
the residential side, not the
I-
commercial side.
We talked about all of it though. And we
But we
chose
didn't do
not,
any?
and we chose not to include that.
But we chose to relook at it if there is profit. We'll
But
vote, we'll vote on it.
anyway, I mean, can we go to the next thing on the study session tonight? I'm a little sick of sidewalks.
That's your opinion. Item 3.
That's also my opinion.
All right, commissioners, we'll go ahead and talk about,
First,
first,
read it first.
oh, you bet.
Discuss the operation of the Champlin Pool. You're on, Cheryl.
Yes, I wanted to talk about Operation of Champlin Pool. We talked about this last year. Specifically what I'm talking about is the opportunity or the possibility of contracting with the Y to run the pool. And what I'd like to do is, I think it could be beneficial, and that's what I want to talk about here, kind of get your thoughts. I remember some of them from last year, but the problem we ran into last year was that we were too late in the game. So I'm trying to start early to see if this is going to work. And anyway, so I want to explore that possibility, continue the discussion, talk about general terms and conditions right now as I'm working on potentially a draft contract with the Y to bring you at some future meeting. And of course, I want your approval, and the Y's got to approve it too. Last year we ran into some issues with liability insurance too, and we may have some of those same issues this year. We're trying to work through those and whether we'll be able to do that or not. And last year, one of the issues was that the Y had asked us to list them as an additional insured on our insurance, and that was not something that we could do or would want to agree to. So what we're trying to do to overcome that is looking at maybe something lesser. And I don't know whether we're going to be able to do that either. But we've got some legal issues to explore with the liability. And we'll see if we can overcome that. If we can, then I'll be bringing it back to you probably at some point. If we can't, then we'll probably move on. Benefits, obviously, the Y could manage it and would handle all the personnel training and certification. Right now, the Y is really involved whether we run it or not, because all of our lifeguards that we hire, unless they're already certified, we go to the Y to get them certified. We pay the Y a fee. I think it's something like $200 a person or something like that. And so we rely on them for certification and training already. And so it wouldn't be a whole lot different just to rely on them to handle all the personnel and operate it, in my opinion. I believe that they could do it more efficiently than we can for various reasons. The main reason to me is they run a pool all the time and not just 3 months or 14 weeks out of the year. And I believe that there would be some reduced overhead burden for us, the city, in staffing and management by having them do that. General terms, there would have to be some management fee to pay them to do that. Roughly right now what we're talking about is a management fee of $36,000 that would be paid in 3 installments. And I'll tell you kind of how we came up with that in a moment. The pool would operate the same as it has about the time frame, basically late May to early September, roughly 14, 15 weeks. The city currently sets and approves the fees, you guys do, and that wouldn't change. We wouldn't want that to change. There's some things that they would want to and they would offer, but the fees for those things would be subject to approval by the owner, which is the city, which is you as the governing body. Obviously, we'd want them to conduct the swimming lessons that happen every year and do that at a reasonable fee. I think that was discussed last year. And so you would approve all of those fees going forward if we did this with the Y, just like you do if we do it. And then I think I mentioned they'd conduct the summer programs. Last year we had EGRT conduct the summer programs, and we paid them $3,000 to do that. Other communities that have this model that I'm aware of, Ponca City has the Y. Ponca City has some advantages on us anyway. They have a specific tax, I think, that they passed that they built an aquatic center with, and then they contract with the Y to run that aquatic center over there in Ponca City. Edmond, when I was down at the city managers conference, I was talking with their assistant city manager, and somehow the pool came up, and he talked about, well, hey, the Y runs their pool, at least their indoor pool. They have an aquatic center there too, and they run their indoor pool. He said they would have liked them to run their outdoor pool, but they didn't get their RFP turned in time or something, so therefore they had another third party that was managing their outdoor pool. So that was just to highlight that this isn't completely crazy. Other communities do it. I want to give you a snapshot. I think you may have seen these slides already. For last year, we ran the pool about 11 weeks or so, and these are the revenues we brought in on pool passes, concessions, and ticket sales. These are the expenses. Maintenance is mostly chemicals. The majority of that is almost all chemicals, because any significant maintenance gets paid out of a different line, and we're going to be responsible for bringing the pool up and getting it running and doing the major maintenance regardless of whether anybody runs it or whether we run it. Concessions was, this is what we spent, and of course this is what we brought in on concessions, candy, pop, and then personnel. You can see roughly personnel is the biggest expense, total $51,000. So roughly we spent about $25,000 more than we brought in to run Champlin Pool. And traditionally we do that. Looking back, that's probably a pretty good figure because it was only about $300 difference the year before. The year before we had a little more revenue because we ended up running it about 14 weeks, I think, that summer. And then our expenses were correspondingly higher. Personnel is clearly the biggest cost still, but the deficit or the difference is still $25,000 to.
What happened there? How do you spend $11,000 on concessions and generate $10,000 in revenue?
You know, I don't know the exact answer to that. Obviously, that was some.
Walmart and resale, the resale isn't that much. There's not that much profit on it.
That's.
Yeah, it was negative profit.
33% last year, and you took a loss. I mean, you obviously, and it's, I mean, 2 summers ago. So.
Right. Last year, we roughly made about $2,000 on those numbers.
I wonder if they ended up throwing something away.
Last year was also cooler, as you remember, too. So it was, so I think that probably impacted it. This year, obviously, something happened. I don't know exactly what, but there's some efficiency and effectiveness issues. But it came out about the same difference, about $25,000 to run the pool.
Gerald, you said maintenance, that the big expenses were in a different account. Can you ballpark that?
Well,
let me ask the question differently because it may change your answer. It seems like when I started this commission 2 years ago, we spent an entire study session being advised about the pool, and the recommendation, as I understood at the time, was just close the pool. It was in such bad shape that it had cracks in it, the equipment all needed to be replaced, and what happened to that? Did we fix it, or is it still in bad shape? Or
it's still in poor shape, but we meet standards to operate it, and it's safe to operate. And so our expenditures have been minimal to keep it going because of constrained resources. But that is a good point, that at some point in the future, we're going to be faced with either closing it or replacing it or doing something different. What I'm trying to do in the interim is try to keep the pool going for at least the next couple of years until maybe we can find a long-term solution. And maybe, I don't know what that solution is other than we're going to need some funding. The big issues haven't gone away, though, to answer your question. In fact, we had a study back in about 2010, and maybe that was brought up while you were on the commission, that showed that we probably need to spend about $320,000 back in 2010 for some things like new pumps, new filters, to replace some tile in some places, and some things like that. Pretty significant expenses that we haven't been able to budget and do. We've been able to keep the system going up to this point, and we think that we can keep it going for another year or two or so.
Does the liability insurance change any?
Our liability insurance is through OMAG, and specifically, oh, you mean with the Y? If the Y's running it? No, we would still have our liability insurance, but we would require the Y or whoever was going to operate it to have their own liability insurance that would cover and be responsible for liability during at least during the times of their operation.
So that's in their $36,000 figure.
Yes, they would have the expense of paying for their insurance. And they would also have the expenses of paying for the personnel. If they want to run a concession stand, they'd have all those expenses. They'd have the expense of chemicals to run the pool. That's the primary expenditure we have in operating maintenance. They would not be responsible for things like $300,000 to replace filter systems if something crashed and died, and that would be our responsibility.
What's the term of the contract?
It'd be 1 year. It'd be year to year. And frankly, we'd say it's a year, but it's for the season from May to September. And so it could be something we could try. And
why do we pay an additional $12,000 for the same thing?
That's a good question. One of the things I wanted to point out,
Or 11?
though, is probably in fairness, we need to go back and look at, these numbers are straight out of our general ledger, so, but there are some numbers that probably aren't included, like the $3,000 that we spent for EGRT, that wasn't included in these numbers. The $1,000 or so we spent on certification to the Y was not included in these numbers. So there's about $4,000 of that difference right there that I can point out. And I think that if I looked at it some more, there's going to be some dollars that, concrete dollars that could be shown that reduce that difference. To actually have a third party or the Y or anybody do it, it'd be the same question for them. If you were going to just break even, why would you do it? I think from their perspective, they're probably looking at some things like community service, the opportunity, since the pool is right next door, to offer some advantages, not only for the public, but maybe for their folks. So the best answer I have right now, Ben, is I can't sit here and tell you that I can cover with concrete expenses the difference in the 11 or 12,000 we would pay, but I can cover a third of that right now.
What about does the agreement set the admission rate?
The
admission rate, the kid shows up, pays $1.50.
What it does is it sets the rate referring to, it says that the owner, right now it says the owner would set those rates.
Okay.
Us, you guys.
What expenses go away of the $70,000?
Well, but all these revenues and expenses potentially for us would go away, because with the Y running it, they would pay to run the facility. They would collect whatever revenues are based on rates that we set. And then what?
It's more than my question is,
yes.
Is it more than the $25,000? We're going to pay them $36,000.
Yes, it's what Commissioner Ezell pointed out. If you could look at it as right, you could look at it as instead of spending $25,000 to run the pool, we'd be spending $36,000. But probably what I need to do is add on there the $4,000 in expenses we've already found. And I think there's efficiency differences in there that would make up that difference, Mayor, to make it worth it to the city to spend $36,000 to run the pool. If we spend $36,000 to run the pool, again, all this stuff is the Y's responsibility. So whatever they make, which again is going to be constrained by and set by whatever you guys set the fees at.
Are you talking about maintenance, concessions, and personnel?
Yes. Yes, they will pay their personnel. They would set the fees on.
A total of $70,000 to me.
Right. The Y potentially can do it more efficiently. I don't know what their personnel expenses would be. I would tell you that
They wouldn't pay the maintenance.
they wouldn't pay the fixing the pool. The chemicals they would pay as part of the agreement currently. And we wouldn't come to an agreement if they didn't do that, because that needs to be part of it.
I don't think they're going to agree to this agreement. I think we're talking about something that probably isn't going to.
Well, and that's something else that's a good point. Ken and I have to work some more. Okay. You guys have to approve this for me, and then his board has to approve it for him for us to move forward. Potentially, if we move forward on this thing, this is probably what would happen, is I would bring back a contract for you guys to review and consider approval on in either the March 15th meeting or the April 5th meeting, probably the 15th. Their meeting, we're going to know if they're going to go for this on the 23rd. I know talking to Ken, he's run it by his president, and he's also got to run it by his finance committee and risk management committee and the full board. The full board meets on March 23rd. So that's when we'll know whether Y will do it for sure or not. Yes, sir.
Who's managed this for us? Is that through the Parks and Rec?
Yes.
And I've heard so many good things about our new
Good.
PNR guy.
Good.
What does he think about this? Does he want to run the pool, or would he like a year off, or what does he think?
Are you talking about Kevin Beam, our new supervisor? He would like to have somebody else run it because it removes a headache for him right now, so he could focus more on the parks and some programs. We are trying to get some other additional programs going. And for anybody that's worked with him, he's very blunt, but I think he's exactly what we need. He's hard charging. We'll probably tell you some more about this, but he's improving the. I know you do. He's improving the batter's boxes and his staff out there that hasn't been done in 100 years at the Crossland Fields, with just simple things I never would have thought of. But his experience from Wisconsin that he brought working in the Parks Department, they have batter's box bricks that keep those little dugout areas from being dugout next to the home plate where you bat. So that's just one little example, but he wants it, and I didn't get him here today, or he would testify for me. Anyway, this is just a possibility. It's something I'm going to work on more with Ken. I understand, I know some of you, and there's probably some reasons why maybe this won't work, and if it doesn't, that's fine, we'll move on. If it does, I think we'd like to try it for a year and see how it works.
I think you need to pursue it.
And that's it for me, unless there's any other questions. All right, thank you.
Item 4, discuss the Enid entryway signs. Chris?
Thank you, sir. As you all recall, we've been trying to get the entryway signs done for quite some time. In this last budget year, what we decided to do is bring on a little bit of professional help. We asked Corbin and Mers to help us out on the architectural side. And during the pre-design meeting with staff, they said that they had some ideas, and what we'd like to do is we'd like to present those ideas to you, show you where we are on it. We fully intend to have this out to bid probably, in about 2 weeks towards the end of the month, so we can get them done in this budget year. And John, who was the architect, will show you what he's to come up with. John, please.
John, speak into the mic, please.
Okay. Hello, my name's John Mers, and I was contracted with city staff to replace 2 signs that are currently, one is located on Highway 81 on the south entry into Enid, and the second one is located by the old Phillips golf course, which is coming in on 412 from the east. And I'll go ahead and you could see, one second. The current sign, the wooden sign that for 412 is located right about in this area. One of the thoughts that we're doing with this is trying to relocate it a little farther out, so it's actually marking more of an entry coming into the city. And the south entry sign is replacing the current location. So there's currently a sign there that we're simply replacing. This is a view looking north at the existing wooden entry sign. This is a view looking toward the west at the location that we're recommending for the eastern sign. And that intersection you see there is 66th Street and 412.
That's the proposed new location?
That's correct. That's correct. Currently, for just giving you an idea of what we are proposing for this, I'm going to be focusing primarily on the Highway 81 location. It's a little bit more of an unusual situation, so I kind of use that as the basis for the layout. What we have is the sign itself. We're showing a low wall that's in the front of this, and then this rectangle that you see around here is a mow strip and curb, which would be a perimeter around where we'd like to show some native grasses or something along that line to act as a base for the sign and as a low maintenance border for the sign. The sign itself is reflecting the new branding that the city has been working toward, and we're seeing it really being a very simple, durable materials that we're wanting to use. The main sign itself, okay, there we go, has a cast, it'll be a concrete tilt-up panel that is about 9 foot wide and about 16 foot tall. And what I was recommending on this is using a concrete that has white Portland cement in it to give it a white look to it as well. And that would be the backdrop for the letters, and it would have the silhouetted cloud image with the current branding. And the signs are laser cut from a plate aluminum, and they'll be powder coated to match the current color scheme that you have for your logo. And the sign is the panel, concrete panel is wedged between a stone base, and we're looking at using a native brown and gray blue Hackett limestone in this area here, and that would wrap around. You can see this is looking at it. If you were heading out of Enid, looking to the south, this pylon would wrap around the sides of that. And what we're suggesting as a part of the composition is having a lower wall that sits out. You can see it sits out in front of the sign. This is the sign itself. That's the concrete panel with the base wrapping around that. And then this sign sits out in front of that. And that we're getting an alternate price on that if it's affordable within the budget. And that would just simply have Oklahoma in raised metal letters that goes across that. You can see across here, this is where that concrete mow strip that we're suggesting around the bottom, and that would have the native grasses there. And this side is significantly sloped, whereas the location over on 412 is lower, but it's a flatter location. So a lot of the stepping and things that we had to do with this sign is not going to be as required for that location. You can see on the side view here, this is the concrete panel with the letters located on the south side of that. This is the brick or the stone base on that with the battered stone base, and this is the battered stone wall on the front.
Is the sign going to be lit?
We currently at the Highway 81 location, there is electricity there with this sign, so we are planning on bringing in and floodlighting that so it'll be well lit at night. The location on the east side of town, there's not currently there's not power there, but the intent is to have an alternate to use solar powered lighting, which I've researched this. There's going to be we're going to try to make sure that it's adequately lit, but that is an issue. As you've seen, a lot of times solar power lighting is not as powerful over time. But that's
John, at that 66 location though, there is electricity in the general vicinity, right? So we could potentially
that would be there. I do know in the median there are street lights there, but the location across the street, they would have to be bored in order to do that, and that is currently not figured in the budget that we have. So that was just where we left it, was that we're going to be exploring the idea of just having solar powered lighting.
Chris, do we think somebody will actually bid on them this go around? I mean, we've sent out a sign bid before, right, and got no bites.
Yes, I actually think we will get a bid on these. Part of what we've asked John to do is help us with material selection, constructability, durability, things like that. So it's more of an engineering package. We can make engineering packages, but as engineers, what we don't do so well is the creative stuff.
John, do you have a color slide?
Yes, I do. And I will, to answer your question, I've spoken to local contractors, and they have expressed interest in this project.
Great.
And we will provide a complete set. And I did see the original drawings, and I could understand their concern. There was information there, but it was left to some opinion. Gotcha. As far as what needs to be done, and contractors just don't like that. They don't like to guess.
What do we estimate the cost per sign to be on this particular design?
As a package, I'm saying that it would fit within the budget of $122,000.
So you're talking about $60,000 a piece?
Yes. This location is probably going to be the more expensive of the two, simply because of the slope. It's going to require some additional site work and stepping of the footings.
John, there's a Woodring Regional Airport sign on the south side of 412, which I think has power.
And I believe, okay, yes.
It's solar.
And it is solar as well, as what I've been told. And this is the location in the daytime. This is a night view.
Where was we on 66? You put this on the half line or at the intersection?
No, I think we looked at the location just past the intersection there on the east side.
We'll be, I'd say, a couple hundred yards east of the intersection itself.
We got enough trees and stuff now, we can't see it crossing 4-lane.
That's quite a ways down from that intersection.
I'm just saying, the more we could keep a dead spot with all the trees we planted, now we can't see oncoming traffic.
Now the intent is not to have this in the median. It would be located on the north side.
It would actually, up against the fence line is where we'd put it. We'll have to get it permitted through ODOT, but the intent is to put it as right on the edge of the right-of-way, up against the fence.
Far enough west.
And then go far enough, and then go far enough east is what we're looking at, so we don't get into the west side of it and where you can still see around it.
I think you got a deal if you can get Fuller for that price.
We see what the bids come in at.
Okay.
We'll get lucky.
Sounds
bid.
good.
I think, Mayor and Ben, I think you were probably in the meeting, but ERDA is doing a lot of work on wayfinding right now. And I know Brent will talk to the commission at some point in the near future. But signage is becoming a bigger issue around here, and wayfinding throughout Enid, I think, is really important. So I hope each of you will keep an open mind on the cost on this. I know it's expensive, but this is something that is very worthwhile, and there's a large project that is currently being undertaken that is much more comprehensive than just these two signs.
If people don't know they're coming to Enid, they're already lost.
That's true. But when they're here, I want them to have a great
You
time.
can Google it up nowadays.
Enjoy.
I want them to go out to Cartwright's and buy a Honda.
I have a question. John?
Yes.
You said floodlights, and it looks like there is floodlights. Is there not lighting behind the lettering? Just floodlights coming up on it?
We discussed the idea of using halo lighting around the lettering, and we could sure pursue that direction. But the thoughts that I had with that is that type of lighting tends to not have as much punch as far as just visually compared to of lighting from the front. So that was really the main concern. It's just I just really wanted to make sure that we got hit it with a lot of lights so it have a dramatic effect coming in.
Looks
Okay.
great.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you. Appreciate it. Item 5, the Enid Event Center and Convention Hall event update. Keller?
Mr. Mayor, City Commission, thank you for giving me the opportunity to give you an update this evening on what we have going on downtown. Going to take you through a couple things. I'll be brief given the time and be happy to stop throughout, answer any questions at the end for you. Give you a financial update, our projection for this year compared to the past 3 fiscal years, talk about upcoming events, and then answer any questions you have at that time. So looking at this chart here, you see our 3 years of actual revenues and expenses and our net impact, along with our projection, which is a 7+5, so January end for this fiscal year. So you can see the net effect, and one thing to keep in mind with FY13 was the fact that the event center, that was kind of a partial year. We operated the old conference center. Convention hall came online in November of that year, and then the event center opened in June. So you can see the net effect, and just to remind you of what these categories entail, event operating income is, very simply put, what our events generate. So it's the net impact to the bottom line on what our events generate. Personnel and operating expenses are exactly that. A large portion, roughly 60 to 65%, is personnel. Another 20% is utilities, and then the others are advertising, some travel and entertainment, and kind of the balance there. Other income are things primarily sponsorship, and we've seen great growth in that. At the current, we've got all 3 of our suites leased out on long-term deals, which is great financially, and those clients are very happy. So you see our net operating income projection for this year is down significantly from last year, a little over $100,000. Our budget for this year was $523,000, and so we're projecting to come in well under that. And we've actually recently here in the last week confirmed some events for June that I believe will potentially take us even lower. So it's great. We're actually on pace to do 14 to 15 concerts this year, which, as you all probably remember from the budget discussion, those help generate net revenue more than any other type of event for us. Any questions on the financials?
Refresh me with the budget. The hotel motel tax, part of it pays all of this difference. How much of this comes out of general fund?
Well, at this point, nothing's come out of the general fund. The hotel motel tax goes into this and funds it along with their operations.
And covers the difference?
Yes.
Okay.
This year we have a challenge, and I think Aaron will talk about that when he's done in just a moment.
Got it. Okay. That's what I need. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So I think it's important, while we're driving net revenue, it's important to us as serving our clients to ensure that we're providing a very high level of customer service across the services we provide. So we do post-event surveys for all of our events on the convention hall side and any applicable events on the event center side. And you can see our results on a 5.0 scale. We're scoring very high, which is what we want to see. The entire staff likes when we get all fives, and we celebrate that. So it's very important to us. We take it very seriously, and we're very proud of the results from our surveys. So a little bit about upcoming events. We have a busy weekend this weekend with a few events, including Amy Grant and Stephen Curtis Chapman. The Tipsy Artist is coming back about once a month this year, and that's continued to be a popular event. We go from basketball mode tonight to concert mode this weekend, and then next weekend we're going to completely transform the event center. I'm excited for all of you to hopefully see it in person, and if not, at least pictures. But the Speakers Ball is a tremendous honor for us to be able to host here in Enid, and you will see the event center like you have never seen it before. It is going to be very dramatic, and we're very, very excited about that opportunity. We've got some fundraisers coming up as well with various not-for-profit organizations locally. We will be hosting a 2A area tournament for OSSAA, which will probably have very good attendance based on how those normally draw. Following weekend, we have Discover the Dinosaurs, which is a dinosaur exhibit. So, through the next few weeks, and then as we turn into April, basically all of our weekends are filled up, which is great to see. We've ventured into classic rock again, which we've heard from the public was an interest. And I can tell you Styx is not the only thing confirmed on the calendar in that genre. So there's more coming soon. Styx is off to a great start on sale a couple weeks ago. We are partnering with the Roller Girls on some additional bouts. And we're continuing to try to make the facility available for community organizations and strategically plug those in the gaps that we have from the major revenue generating events. We do have the circus coming back on April 6th. We have Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard coming on the 13th. That's a sold out show. It sold out in about 2.5 hours and was a huge success for us. We've partnered with some local organizations to create a beer festival this year. Junior Welfare League will directly benefit from that event, so that's a new one for us. For King and Country is a Christian group, very hot right now, multiple songs on the radio, partnering with a few local organizations on that event. Just announced that this week. Tickets go on sale tomorrow. On the 21st, we've got a large company here locally bringing in a pretty big comedian that is not quite public yet, but big event that we're probably going to see about 3,000 folks come through the building for. Star Trek, a little bit different type of show, but we've continued to try to diversify our event mix to influence a lot of different people coming to town. Nicole's Gymnastics, as I said, another one of those community events. The Beach Boys is off to a fantastic start. That will probably sell out here in the next few weeks if I had to predict. Vince Gill is announced and off to a great start. And then we will add 1 to 2 more concerts in this fiscal year. And we have multiple concerts already confirmed for next fiscal year. And we're working on several events that will take us even further outside of what we hosted already. So we're very excited. We've seen very strong support for our shows. And that makes the conversations with the agents and promoters, that makes Enid very appealing. And we've seen the regional draw still. Our zip code analysis from our ticket purchasers are holding steady at about 40% of individuals coming in from outside of Garfield County to attend events. And using our post-event surveys, we're figuring those are good for 250 to 300 room nights per concert. So a lot of people coming in from out of town, spending the night, eating, shopping, and doing the things we want to do.
What's the ratio of the event center to convention hall on your outline there? Is it 50-50?
On which area, Mr. Mayor?
All those events are in the event center.
That's correct. Yes, sir. Yeah, I wanted to show some of the public events, and we have a number of other private meetings that occur in the building. You know, for example, Grondike finished up their third set of 2-day meetings that they host with us every year. Other local organizations host a number of meetings. So if you're looking at the number of events, I would say close to 310, I would say, are in Convention Hall, and the balance are in the event center.
385.
Yes, sir.
And that's all included in the revenue and the expense.
Correct. Yes, sir. Yes, both buildings are encompassed in both of these.
Do you have any way of measuring the economic impact that we get back for the $477,000 expense to the city?
We've no, it's okay. I mean, it's yeah, no, it's a great question, and we would welcome trying to find a measure that would very accurately measure that. The concerts, our best mechanism is essentially surveying our folks that come to concerts. So we're seeing most guests, 250 to 300 room nights generated, and from a amount they spend in Enid perspective, which is one of the questions, we're seeing the average answer to be between $100 and $150. So if you extrapolate that out over, 12 to 15 concerts, average attendance of 2,000 people, you can generate some kind of impact. Now, the things that aren't captured are things like, Grondike, for example. Great partners of ours do 3 sets of meetings, bring in about 100 people into the community for two nights. So it would be hard to estimate the exact value, but I can tell you that we're tracking on the concert side everything we can to provide you with that data, and I can provide that by concert or in general at any time. Yes, sir.
I was kind of going the same way Aaron was. I was trying to figure out how we get that 477 down to 0. What things it would take to do that.
Pardon my interruption.
No, go ahead.
One of the things they discussed during the ERD meeting a couple weeks ago with the speakers ball was they're projecting somewhere around $110,000 economic impact for people coming into Enid. I know Ben's shaking his head. I shook mine also.
Number's
but
crazy.
They had some way of measuring that back for hotel rooms and all of the vendors that are coming in for this project. And I mean, it's a pretty big deal. So,
but it also would be nice just to be able to do it with money and then not have to worry about what other impact comes in.
Right, I agree.
And I just didn't know if more concerts do that or.
I think, Commissioner, we're at in my opinion, we're at a tipping point. I can tell you, Gerald and I work very closely on concert opportunities, and I can tell you that there's probably 3 this spring that I didn't bring to him because I didn't think they were smart investments for us. So there is more content, but it's us being strategic on when we plug it in to make sure the country shows are spread out, the classic rock shows are spread out, there's not family shows on top of each other. So we have to do things like that. I think concerts, I think the 12 to 16 to 17 is the right amount for them to all be successful, which keep agents and promoters happy and our bottom line heading the direction we all want it to. We do have some other opportunities on the horizon. Long-term state business is very close to being, coming to fruition with some other projects being completed. We're still actively looking for naming rights partners. I think we have 2 proposals that will make this spring. with local organizations that may be willing to make an investment at that level. So I think those two things are important for the bottom line. The long-term business alone is probably worth $100,000 to $150,000 net, in my opinion. And then the naming rights could be in that same range.
Are the naming rights a one-time revenue, or is it spread out?
Traditionally, that would be an annual payment for an organization, and typically we would look at a deal of 7 to 12 years. Because there's an upfront production cost to make that change in building signage and, polos and everything else that is around the building. So it's a significant investment. However, there's significant value derived at the same time. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Kelvin. Item 6, storm debris cleanup.
Hey, let's go ahead and skip sorry, Lou, let's skip the storm debris cleanup. You guys got the slides unless you have any questions, because I'd like to get Jade Champion. She's done a great job at the library, and so has her staff, and there's been some renovations, and she did some wonderful slides. I'd like her to have the opportunity to show you guys tonight and answer your
We
questions.
should rename it, quit putting your mattresses on the curb cleanup.
What's that?
So we should name it, quit putting your mattresses on the
Yes,
curb cleanup.
yes.
I've seen more mattresses on the curb in the last 2 months than I have ever. Those are not storm debris.
It's not brush.
Those are not storm
A few
debris.
couches out there too.
And I know you were snowed in for a few days.
Before Jade starts, I wanted to say, if you remember a couple of years ago, the library was asked to more or less reinvent itself, become more efficient, lower their budget, and also at the same time, the Library Association of Oklahoma was pushing for libraries to go to move towards technology. And so about that same time, we hired Jade to become the library director, and she's done a very good job. So.
Hello. If I haven't met you before, my name's Jade Champion. I'm the library director. I have lived in Enid ever since I was a little bitty girl, so I grew up with this library. It has a lot of deep meaning to me, and so we want to talk about the changes that we've been doing. If you haven't been in the library in the last 3 years, I took this picture yesterday morning, so I wanted you to see what it's like from the front. That's from one side, and that you can kind of see into the teen area, into the makerspace area, and this is to the right, and you'll see a lounge back there, and with strategically placed chairs, and then some shelving there. I wanted to talk about our relevant past. The past is something that's been coming up into the news lately because we've been placed on the National Register of Historic Places. And so I wanted to talk about that because our building is 50 years old. And we are a significant example of mid-century modern architecture. We've been on several tours. We've talked to people from out of town, from all over the country about our building. It's very cool. And I thought, well, maybe people don't know exactly what being on the National Register of Historic Places is. So those are the 4 criteria. I'll let you go ahead, and I don't want to read them to you, but those are the 4 criteria. I believe probably the 3rd one is probably what put us on the National Register of Historic Places because of we were built in 1964, and we are a significant example of mid-century modern architecture. We've also been placed as a literary landmark. I wanted to show you a picture of Marquis James. I'm sure several people haven't heard of who Marquis James is, and Joan's going to help me. She's been hearing all about Marquis James lately. This is Marquis James. He's an Enid native. Well, actually, he was born in Missouri in 1891. His family moved to Enid in 1893, and they made the land run. His father was an attorney, which was a pretty. There were several attorneys in that time because of the land run. Everyone was arguing over land. And so attorneys, there were little attorney tents all over the place. His father was an attorney here, and he actually wrote a journal. I'd actually have the journal in the back if you guys would like to look at it. Make sure you wash your hands before you look at it. But it's actually his journal from 1901. It's handwritten, and they didn't have paper like what we have. So he wrote it on the back of, I think, tax papers and things like that. So it's really actually pretty cool. And I wanted to bring that part of the library to you because these aren't things that I actually ever show people. I mean, I show them, but they don't ever get to handle and look through. In addition, we also have 2 of his Pulitzer Prizes. If you've never seen a Pulitzer Prize, I brought one to show you. That's what they look like. And that one was issued in 1930. And then as a companion to that, I have his original manuscript for that work that he has, The Raven. It's a biography of Sam Houston. Marquis James, he was a nonfiction author. He enjoyed Sam Houston and Andrew Jackson. So both of his Pulitzer Prizes, one's for Sam Houston, one's for Andrew Jackson. Past literary landmarks, this would make Enid the 12th literary landmark in the state of Oklahoma. Most of these others that are showing up here were because of Indian culture. This would be the first one that's actually in the strip. The closest one was in Marshall, Oklahoma with Angie Debo. The others had mainly, like I said, Indian heritage. This is the first one that's because of settling the land. This is a picture of him. And if you might recognize his quote. It was a live town pulsing with great expectations. Marquis James wrote that quote, and that's what our Enid branding has been based on. This is the current room. It's in construction right now. You'll see that there's a lot of empty walls right now. The Cromwell family was generous enough to, they saw my vision with the literary landmark, and they donated $40,000 to refurnish that room. You'll see all the tops and the sides. They're solid wood along with the study table. They have leather seats, and then all of that's leather. On the walls, we're going to have all of Marquis James's memorabilia. In addition to that, we'll have the McConkey photos that we have that used to be up there. There's a framed photo now, and that's actually of the North Enid Railroad War. So we have framed all of those, and they've been put behind museum glass.
The little boy has got a gun.
No, it's a slingshot. He's going to slingshot yeah. So partnering with the relevant past, we need to talk about our relevant future. And I was given the challenge of making sure that we had a relevant library for our community to make sure that it was everything that the Enid community wanted. The first thing that we have is makerspace. This was actually supposed to look a little bit different, but you know, it is what it is. A makerspace is something that's a DIY. Anything that you create. So you think of the things that you might have done in school, like the VOTEC and your woodworking and things like that may have been taken out of some of the curriculum and sparked that creativity. Those are the things that we're putting into the library. So while we're furnishing information to the public, we're giving it to them in a different way that they haven't received before. So they're going to get books, but now they could get books on electronics, but what we're going to do is we're going to show them how to use those electronics. We're going to try to spark that interest. This is one picture of the makerspace. This is when my husband and I were teaching some junior high kids on how to make a circuit. So we made a working circuit with an LED. I never thought I could do that, but you know, when you read read enough books, you can figure it out. So these kids, they were actually, a majority of them were from Waller. One was homeschooled, and they hadn't been able to build a circuit before. These are our robots that you see right there. And then we also have from doing the circuitry the other day. These are some kids that have brought these are Chisholm Gate kids, and they brought their kids to see our makerspace and do things. And so these kids are playing with the robots that they have programmed and coded in order for them to do some things with those. These are some kids that are creating their own robots. These are little plastic fasteners that somehow work together to make them be able to program something in code. It's kind of strange, but I haven't, that one wasn't mine. I didn't do that one. Then we have our study rooms. This was something that our community, they said that they wanted, something that was quiet, something that they could get together with other students and learn in a quiet space. These are our, excuse me, our study rooms that were built. I wrote 2 grants for these 2 things. I wrote one grant to an individual that was donating funds for creative and innovative projects. She donated $30,000 for our children's program, for our children's books, and she donated another $20,000 to have these rooms constructed. No. We are the only people in the state that have received funds from her for something other than books. So we constructed these study rooms. This is a lady using the whiteboards that are in the study rooms. This is a couple doing some type of technology. It looks like Facebook, but they're within the study room. They're in the study rooms. But you know, it's pretty awesome when I see, you know, sometimes people can be challenged by computers and things like that. And we do a lot of education for seniors with computers. And it's pretty cool when I see people that are, you know, they're kind of navigating on their own all over the computers. So I'm not sure what she's doing on the side there with that little device. And the last is Lady Olivia Benson. Some people may not have heard of her for a while, but we thought we might go talk about her real quick. She was recently selected by Wes Gray as an icon of Enid. So she is now an icon of Enid, but in addition, she has been trained, she's fully trained, and she is being used as a reading therapy pig. This is her picture by Wes Gray. She was eating a potato whenever he got that picture, so it was really great, but that's her. And then this is actually, Enid was selected as a 2018 OLA, Oklahoma Library Association convention site. And this is our publicity poster. So these will be distributed all over the state of Oklahoma. There'll be 1,800 that'll be printed. And they all feature Olivia. And then at the bottom, it talks about the benefits of reading therapy animals. And I thought I would just put in a quick, did you know? And I promise you I'll be quick. Did you know we are the only library in the state of Oklahoma that promote the 1K before K? And what that is it's a program for kids of 1,000 books before kindergarten to promote literacy in the state. That we're actually the largest library in Northwest Oklahoma. That we serve as a consultant library for those libraries in Northwest Oklahoma and school libraries. That we offer programming for everybody from newborns all the way to seniors. That we see people from all over the United States because of our genealogy, and that's because of the Cherokee Strip. There are people that come here that are researching their ancestors, and they've lost their line because their line went to Enid, Oklahoma, and they don't know what happened after they went to Enid, Oklahoma. And so we have all of the materials to help them find their relatives. Our makerspace is the largest and the most extensive in all of western Oklahoma. Our summer reading program engages and enrolls more than 1,000 students, and we surpassed Norman Public Library this year. And our enhanced virtual library, which will make everything, all your ebooks, all of your online magazines, all of the Chilton's manuals, all of everything that you can think of that the library has now, it's going to be in one easy, accessible place, and that's going to be launching in summer of 2016. So that's all I have, unless you have some questions.
Thanks, Jane.
Thanks. Thanks.
We're adjourned. We'll meet upstairs at 6:30.
Thank you for joining us for the Enid City Commission study session. If you have any questions or comments, visit our website at enid.org.